Hi guys. All right, so I totally just did a Zoom meeting and I'm not entirely sure that I did it right. Nobody else showed up and I thought I was recording, but I obviously need like a technological manager for this company. So I'm just going to redo a quick version of that meeting so that you guys have the information. So it's on protein, and protein's kind of exciting. It's super controversial. We don't really know where or what the real answers are yet, at least as far as research goes. You know, there's a lot of anecdotal stuff out there. And there's a lot of people with different thought processes out there, and there's a lot of people who disagree with each other. So if we were to break it down, and we were to say, like, what is at least like the government recommend that your RDA, like the lowest amount of protein that you should be taking in most days. And I say most days because you can absolutely take in zero protein a few days a week. Protein cycling or have a lower amount is actually really beneficial. We'll dive into that in a little bit. Like today, I am 58 hours fasted, so I didn't take in any protein, right, since Tuesday. But I will, because this is my regeneration phase, my clearing, my detoxing, my body's resting. But then I will do a higher amount of protein during my refeeding phase, when then my body is kind of regenerated and my stem cells are stimulated, and I stimulate muscle synthesis. And I'm also stimulating muscle synthesis, protein synthesis, while I'm fasting because I'm working out as well. So, you know, there's a lot of different things to tie into protein. But let's start with the basics. You always want, for most days of the week when you're thinking about this, it's 0.8 kgs 0.8 kilograms per kg of your body weight. So if you take your body weight, like I am 120 pounds, so I divide that by 2.2. That gives me 54-ish kgs. Okay, so then I'm going to take 54 and I'm going to times it by whichever, whatever number. So if I times it by 1.2, which is what I'm going to tell you that I suggest for most of you, that gives me as low as 65 grams of protein a day. I suggest that most of us, although you can have a couple of days during your week that you have 0 to 0.8 grams per kilogram of protein, and that's fine. For your days that you're eating, add a moderate to higher protein. And this is, the Bear Way is really a moderate with an occasional high amount of protein. It is not a high protein diet. I do not subscribe to a high protein diet. I do believe that high protein diets do cause damage to your body in the long run. Whether or not they hurt your kidneys is probably not true. That's usually the thing that you hear, but it definitely can. If you're pushing protein all the time, particularly animal protein, then you are at higher risk for cardiovascular disease and a variety of different cancers. And that seems to be pretty clear cut across the research. But we're going to dive in as to why eating a good amount of protein, moderate to slightly high occasionally, and cycling in and out of low protein days is actually amazingly good for you. So 1.2 kgs to 1.8, depending on activity level and age. So say you're 25 and not very active, then 1.2 is absolutely fine. Say you're 65 and you're still not very active. I want you a little higher at 1.6 to 1.8, unless you have kidney disease. And if you have kidney disease, talk to me. But we're going to actually lower you down to 0.6 if you have kidney disease. And I don't think any of you in this group is, but if anybody's watching this video and is not currently a client and you have kidney disease, I would talk to your doctor about your protein intake. But especially the few of you who are in special circumstances, like say pregnant or breastfeeding, you could probably up that protein level if it's comfortable for you and your body, and depending on what your physician says, to that 1.6 to 1.8, because it is a time of growth for you and high caloric need. So 1.2, 1.6, 1.8 are kind of like the different things that you want to look at. So that for me looks like either 65 grams, which is incredibly low, right? So I'm going to hit that most days without thinking about it. 1.6 would be at 87, and if I was up to the 1.8, I would be 98. Okay, and I kind of play with those different ranges throughout the week. I do, through different parts of my life, do different types of exercise. So when I'm lifting a lot, I do go more towards that 98. And when I am kind of, life is for whatever reason, I'm never really sedentary, but say I'm not lifting and I'm just taking walks and doing some Tabata and some really light movement, then I might go to 1.6. And then there are days that I do 0 because I fast at least 1 day a week. So and I also will do days that I have maybe a vegetarian diet that day. Especially now in the spring and the summer, I'm going to do that a little bit more. I'm probably going to pick 1 day a week that is a meatless Monday type of day where I have, say, a sprouted tofu or some sprouted legumes and nuts and greens and all sorts of other plant type proteins, maybe some pea protein or some hemp protein. So that like 1, 2, maybe 3 days a week, you're in that lower 0 to 0.8 level of protein. And then there's other days that say if I lifted really heavy, then that day I'm going to eat the 1.8. I'm going to make sure that I am really getting in the appropriate amino acids to allow because we talk a lot about fasting, right? So fasting is so incredible for you, but you have to remember that it's one side of the coin, that fasting is really good for you, but you also need to regenerate. You need to refeed. You need to feed your body. You need to grow. So you need to be anabolic and catabolic, right? You need to be fasted and feasting. It's yin and it's yang. It's the two sides of everything. It's the balance. It's cycling. Nothing is you should do this every day. I want you to look at everything like a cycle. Some days you want to be high protein and some days you want to be low. Most days you want to be moderate. Super easy. So then the other thing though, and you're going to be getting an email on this that has your numbers, so you don't have to worry about writing down numbers, is quality of protein. When you eat an animal that's conventionally factory farmed, you are eating an entirely different being than when you eat a beautiful animal that was grown on a farm, on a ranch, fed the appropriate food that it was supposed to be fed, and moving as it's meant to be. It's not just the spiritual idea of like this happy little animal. It is an actual physiological change in the meat that you're eating. The omega ratio from 3 to 6 is different. The mineral levels are different. The nutrient quality is different. So it's not worth it. I'd rather see you eat less and eat higher quality than eat more and lower quality. Because it all goes back to those omegas, just like the vegetable oils, right? If you eat poor quality meat, you're eating a ton of omega-6 and you're going to create a ton of inflammation in your body. So don't do it. I mean, financially, I understand none of us can eat 100%. And I would rather see you eat a little bit less meat and conventionally raised vegetables that you cautiously pick and then prepare appropriately. So like making sure you wash them and pulling up the dirty dozen list and things like that. So I'd rather you consciously eat your meat and eat a little bit less and higher quality. So the other thing is the way that we kind of break down the amount of animal proteins that we have, or what type of animal proteins. So we have a tendency as humans to eat kind of the same thing over and over and over again. So I want to encourage you all to kind of look at your diversity of your animal product and break it up. Like what percentage would you say of your protein intake comes from marine sources? And when I say marine sources, they need to be wild, right? So oysters, scallops, wild fatty fish, shellfish, really breaking it up. So I have this thing where I really want to eat sardines and anchovies. They're so good for you because they're lower on the food chain, so they have less toxicity and mercury in them, and their omega ratio awesome. So you guys should have them a lot in your meals. I have a mental block about them, and I've had them in my refrigerator, and I keep trying to eat them. So my goal is, like I said, I'm 58 hours fasted. So whether I go to the 70-something, 80-something hours, I'll eat them tomorrow, or I'm going to eat them today. But whenever I break my fast, that is my goal. So I will report back whether or not I was able to push my comfort zone. Because I'm always telling other people to push their comfort zones. And this is my push this weekend. So think about a food maybe that you've never had and try to have it this weekend. And let's all report back at the end of the weekend. What did we do? What good, amazing thing. Because there is so much amazing, nutrient-dense animal products out there that we're not eating. The whole concept of eating nose to tail, eating the full animal. that's the way that nature intended it. And it's really the respectful thing to do to the animal, right? Because you don't want to just discard parts that are so important. So moving towards diversity, maybe trying some liver, maybe trying, some bone marrow. I love bone marrow. If you've ever gone out and got bone marrow, it's so amazing. It's so nutrient dense. Changing up and adding to the animals that you consume. Have you ever had bison or elk? So venison. Maybe changing the parts of the body that you're eating. Like this weekend, I'm having wild-caught salmon. I'm having scallops. I'm having the sardines. And I'm also having chicken thighs, which are one of my favorites, on the bone with the skin. So diversity, diversity, diversity. Take out the crap, add in the good, get more diverse. Get more diverse with your vegetables too. I mean, this is not about protein, but it is diversity. So maybe having like some sprouts. Have you ever had sprouts? The phytonutrients in them are amazing. So broccoli sprouts, anything. Try to get some sprouts in your diet this weekend. And I think that's pretty much it. So I'm going to email you with the actual numbers. I do want you to kind of think about where you are protein-wise. Think about it if you're not strict keto right now. And some of you are, and that's fine, because we all, there are times that we need to be in ketosis, and there are times that we need to kind of cycle in and out of it. So just like I want you to cycle in and out of high protein and low protein and no protein, I want you to cycle in and out of ketosis once you're fat adapted. And I think we've talked about fat adaptation before, and we'll talk about it again. But if you're in a place right now, because it is springtime, and the body kind of naturally, if you look in the realm of the year, ancestrally, this is where we would be running more into some higher carbohydrate foods. So you can cycle in and out of ketosis. All those people online that tell you not to, that's bullshit. I would like to see you maybe do one day of a vegetarian style diet here and there. Possibly that would be the day that I think I sent out a thing saying, why don't you mix up what you're doing? So if you've been doing something continuously this entire program, like deep ketosis the whole time, or so if you've been deep ketosis the whole time, then I want you to kind of branch out. Have a day where you actually drop your fat and up your carbs. I know it sounds crazy. Keep your protein moderate that day. Or do a day where you just up your protein significantly, but you keep your protein, your fat, and your carbohydrates the same. Do something a little bit different than you've been doing. The other thing that you can do is if you're stalled and you've been really, really good and you've been stalled, we do have a holiday coming up right on Monday. You can have a crazy day where you eat 3 big meals and just eat whatever you want, and just eat, and don't get on the scale the next day, because you will retain. But throwing and tossing these crazy days in, whatever it seems to work for you. So if you've been really tight, I want you to kind of go a little crazy. If you've been kind of lax and just taking in the information, then take this weekend for a really tight weekend and really dial in. But whatever you've been doing, do something different. Just for a day. And it's not like I'm going to eat like crazy all weekend because Jenny said have a crazy day. I mean, have 3 meals, right? So that, and be hypercaloric. You want to have extra calories every once in a while, especially if you've been fasting. And also, if any of you are interested in prolonging your fast a little longer, reach out to me. Personally, it's hard to kind of talk about it as a group because it is very individualized, and there's a lot of things that you want to take in consideration. But if you're thinking of going, some of you have been playing with 20 hours, but if any of you are thinking about going over 22, 24 hours, I do want you to talk to me, because it's something that should be kind of, there are tips and tools and things that you should know and times that you need to break it. So that's it. I hope you all have an awesome weekend, and we will talk soon. Thank you.